Hello and welcome to the Culture Books podcast. This is episode 5, chapter 5, Megaship. I'm Sheridan and I'm joining pod with...
Hello, I am John once again, and greetings to you all. It happens to be my birthday, so...
Happy birthday.
Thank you all for giving me the present of listening to this episode.
What do they do in the culture on birthdays?
They have big parties.
Do they?
Yeah.
I thought it might be sort of a bit of below them having...
No, they really like big parties.
What do the Adirans do?
I don't think the Adirans celebrate birthdays.
I think that they drink very heavily and get very depressed.
We have no textual evidence of this, but they might just have a somber religious service to celebrate their god. Yes, okay. So, what are we going to do first here, Sheridan?
Well, you're going to do the recap.
Okay, the story up until now. There's a war in space. On the one side is the culture, which human-like creatures live in, but seems to be run by artificial intelligence. And on the other side, you've got the Adirans, who are giant reptiles who don't seem to have much sense of humour. And then you've got Horza, who's our hero. He's a humanoid shapeshifter who's on the Adiran side. He's been given a mission to find a missing culture mind that's on a planet of the dead. And that's it. Done. I had my timer on the wrong thing.
So you could have gone under 30 seconds.
I was a bit
you could have gone over.
That wasn't a great recap.
No one knows.
I was suddenly realising that the timer was counting down 30 minutes, which would have made for a hell of a recap.
You probably could have done the recap justice, though. We're nearly halfway through the book.
True.
Oh, maybe not. No, we're about a quarter.
No, not halfway through this book. Okay, anyway, so... yes, that's kind of a very rough recap. Horza has fallen in with a band of mercenaries who have a spaceship and is hoping and is possibly still thinking about performing his mission. And they've just lost a battle trying to loot a temple. Boom. Okay. That's a terrible 30-second recap with technical difficulties in my defence. Okay, Sheridan, in your 30 seconds, can you please recap the chapter?
Horza and Yolson are in a bit of a love shack situation, friends with benefits. Everything seems to be going pretty chill. Kraiklyn has a new mission for them, but he just may want to go and play a game of damage, where they go to a megaship to get some lasers to equip their ship on, and they get onto the megaship and it runs into a big wall of ice, and then pretty much everyone dies except for Mip and Horza.
Perfect. Everyone dies?
Well, look, if they don't die, they've got a really good story to tell.
Everyone gets left behind.
Everyone does get left behind, but at least...
Lamb's definitely dead.
Lamb's dead, and Lenipova is dead.
Yes. So more deaths.
I did find that death to be quite humorous, actually.
Okay, we'll get to that. So it opens with clear air turbulence approaching the Vavatch orbital. And a lot of the writing in this first part of the chapter is just trying to get into our heads how freaking enormous this thing is. Did it get across to you, Sheridan?
Well, yeah, because it seems to be filled with things called megaships.
Yep.
So there's multiple of them.
Yep, okay. And, I mean, just the description here, I think that it's, straight off the bat, that it's 15 million kilometres around and 35,000 kilometres wide. And for people who don't quite have it in their head how big that is, if you unwrapped the Earth, so it was laid out in a line how far around it is, that would be about the same width as the width of this orbital.
Right, so yeah, it's big.
Yeah. You could probably put two Earths side by side if you kept them as globes, and that'd be the...
And the culture's going to blow the whole thing up.
The culture's going to blow the whole thing up.
The culture are assholes. They are really awful.
You say that because they're going to blow up this astonishing creation?
Yes, and there seems to be... I mean, it is right at the end of the chapter, but there's a little island with people that Mip calls natives.
Yeah.
Seem to have sort of bit of a weird sort of colonial racist overtone the way they were described. But anyway.
Well, natives, as in they were native to the orbital.
Yeah, but they kind of describe them like running out with their spears, but they weren't spears, they were guns.
I think we've got some more exploration of those to
okay.
do.
Anyway, it was just a little... I was like, ooh, I don't know if I'm okay with this anymore.
Well,
but
we'll see where we go with that.
But, there's obviously, a bunch of people like that living there, and the culture's like, screw it, just blow it up.
Yep. Okay, and as they're approaching the orbital, Hawser's having a theological argument with Dorolo, who views that this incredible structure is proof of God's existence, when Hawser's like, it was literally built by intelligent beings, and how can you use proof of that? The evidence of their hard work as proof of the existence of a unknown God. On the other hand, given that Hawser has literally met Erdra Arzon, how he could not believe in the existence of gods is kind of strange. Although I guess there's gods and then there's big God.
Yeah.
And then we get the message from the culture, which is the first of what we're going to have many of in these books, which is important emails.
Oh, they're sort of like, when we're in a different room from each other and you tell something to the Google Home and to broadcast a message to me, they're a bit like that.
Very much like that. Yes.
But maybe with a more serious overtone.
In military parlance, you'd call it a signal. Now...
It's not just you going, let the dog back in. Can I have a drink?
Not that you ever do either of those things. Now, what you've got to look for with these things is there's often a lot of very important, clever detail. So the first one for mine is, in this it's saying, hey, we're destroying this orbital, so any craft coming near is warned, don't land here. And it's describing that it's going to be destroyed by nova-level hypergrid intrusion, which we've talked about grid fire earlier, which is it's sort of an unravelling of the fabric of space and time and letting the underlying energy of the multiverse flow through. So that's what this grid fire is what they're going to use to blow up the orbital. But then that's not enough. Subsequent CAM bombardment, which stands for collapsed antimatter. So not just normal antimatter, this is the collapsed antimatter. So some really exotic physics is going to be exerted on destroying this orbital.
So this conversation reminds me a little of a revelation I had in this chapter.
Yep.
Because I quite like this chapter, because it's quite action-packed.
Okay, right, good.
And I've realised that perhaps the reason I don't like science fiction books, too much science.
True. Okay.
And as well a discussion about the matter and the gravity and, those sciencey things.
Yeah.
I do tend to glaze over a little.
You'd be firing up the anti-gravity on your suit and jumping over the back.
I would be like Lenny Pobra.
Yeah. Now, there's one more thing in this message that I have read this book several times and I never got until this reading. Sent by Eschatologist, temporary name, Culture General Systems Vehicle. And I was pretty sure I knew what eschatology is, but I looked it up just to be sure.
You're going to have to enlighten me, I'm afraid.
It's the study of the end of the world.
Oh.
So, to temporarily name yourself as the ship, the eschatologist, is to say, I'm an expert on the ending of worlds.
Wow, they've got a dark sense of humour, these culture folk.
They do. And also, if you look up eschatology on Wikipedia, first thing it says is not to be confused with scatology, which is the study of poo. And I feel like the culture mind would have appreciated that clarification. So, in a whimsical little way, this culture GSV is saying, I am the Grim Reaper and I am here to kill everyone.
Yes.
Yeah, which I thought was really interesting. And then we get to try and give us a scale of what's going on. Wobsland's beautiful description of his teacher trying to show him how... And this was on another planet saying, this is what if you're lucky enough to see the megaships of Vavatch, this is what you'll see. And it's describing holding a bucket of water with a boat floating in it and then spinning round and round until you can it's holding itself out sideways with the centripetal force. And the boat's still floating in the bucket of water, and that's a bit like what you get with this thing millions of kilometres around and 2 planets wide, floating in space, full of water. Where they got the water from, whoever built it certainly knew what they were doing. I think it suggested this isn't a culture-built orbital, so someone else had built it, but the culture definitely does build orbitals of this size.
Right.
So, were you impressed by the orbital and its description, or was that things that just sort of floated by?
Oh, it's big.
He really worked on it, because later in the chapter, Hawes is describing, well, if this shuttle keeps flying for 3 days, maybe we'll get to land, and you get an idea of, wow, this
I have to say, I did think when Kraiklyn says, we'll just get onto the megaship and we'll leave our, the cat unaccompanied. I can control it myself. Mm-hmm. I was like, this doesn't sound like a good idea, given the whole thing's going to be blown up soon.
There's nothing good in Kraiklyn's plan.
No.
This plan goes even worse than the Temple of Light, which was a complete schmozzle.
Yes. I'm surprised that they've gotten this far as a company, frankly.
They're certainly less competent here than they were in the Temple of Light, which was also a schmozzle. Yeah, we do get a bit of backstory on Horza and...
his girlfriend.
The asteroid he came from and his girlfriend. How do you feel about Horza's love life, with the description of how he feels about Yeltsin and...
Woman, sorry, I've forgotten her name. Does he name her?
He does name her, but there we go, Kirachel.
She sounds very dull. I mean, she's a changer, but she's like, meh, I don't need to do that. Mm-hmm. Was she just baking cookies and...
Well, she might be studying cello for all we know. She just doesn't want to shapeshift and murder people.
Who wouldn't want to... You don't have to murder people if you shapeshift.
Well, the whole point of taking someone's look is to kill them and take their place.
You could just maybe shapeshift and just withdraw all their money from their bank account or something.
It's a lot easier if they're dead, though.
Well, get into a decent nightclub. Could be, she could just have a bit of fun with it.
I don't think there's a lot of very good nightclubs on their asteroid.
I mean, look, he seems like he's going through a midlife crisis. He's unhappy with his employer, but he feels some sort of tie to them. Mm. He wants to just go and live with his, mediocre but probably caring girlfriend. Yeah,
but it's a classic thing where he got bored with her and then he left. And now it's been a few years.
He's like, it's really... This mercenary shit's really tough going. I think I want to go back and have my dinners made and my feet rubbed.
But he's only remembering the good stuff at this point. If he goes back, he'll be bored again in 6 months, I would say.
I would say so too.
And he'll break her heart again.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a little disappointed in Horza, although, he's basically a description of young man with opportunities and options.
But how young is he? I feel like he's heading towards middle age.
He might be, but we're still thinking, I'd say 30s, or equivalent to an early 30s dude who hasn't settled down and still thinks he's got some options. Little does he know.
It only gets worse.
The description of... so Horza had gotten a fight trying to stop a bunch of changes from stealing the asteroid out of Idiran space. And it describes that, in some ways, Horza had been lucky. He was without friends or influence. His parents were dead. His clan was all but defunct save for him. Family ties meant a lot in the change of society, and with no influential relatives or friends to speak for him, Horza had perhaps escaped more lightly than he had a right to expect, which does also come back to his luck. But
maybe he's just lonely.
Yeah, but it's sort of indicating he's not representative of changes, although most changes are fighting with the Idirans by the sound of it.
That was a bit of a revelation, actually.
Yeah.
That it's a little bit more complex than...
Yeah, but he's quite a loner, parents dead, no siblings, no family. So that's shaped him. So he's even more emotionally odd than most other changes probably would be. And how do you feel about his feelings about Yeltsin?
Well, it's convenient, right? You know what, we've been watching a lot of Below Deck, which is a reality TV show set on a super yachts. Yes. And it reminds me of two people on Below Deck, maybe the bosun and the chief stew. They just have a little fling for the charter season. This is what is happening here.
Yeah, I guess so.
I actually, though, am starting to suspect that there's something that in the past with Yeltsin and Kraiklyn.
Oh, yeah, they could definitely have had a fling, bump some uglies. Yeah.
Because she seems to feel very protected from him,
Yeah.
and she gives him a lot of crap,
Mm-hmm.
but she knows a lot about his personality and what drives him. And I think that there's a history there.
There's quite a clever moment when they're lying in bed together, exchanging pillow talk, and Halsey's like, oh, what if Kraiklyn's bugged the room? And when you think about it, when it enters your brain, it's like, of course Kraiklyn's bugged all the rooms.
But she's like, I wouldn't care if he did.
Yeah.
As though he knows what I think of him.
Hmm. Yes. What do you think of the damage game? What do you think damage is going to be all about?
I am very interested to see this game, and it better be exciting.
Hmm.
It sounds exciting.
I mean, the players of the Eve of Destruction sounds a bit like the masked people in Squid Game, doesn't it?
Well, it's called Damage. And they're betting ships. It sounds like high stakes and...
Yeah.
I wonder if you die in it, though.
We'll have to see. No, we're not going to spoil that.
No, I don't want you to.
Yeah, but it's certain... I mean, this whole... It's a very Star Wars nod. Because, of course, the Millennium Falcon was Han Solo wanted in a game of cards as well. Yeah, it's one of those things that people who are gambling ships in card games don't normally let little people join the game. Like, why would you want to lose a ship to someone who you're not going to win ship-like quantities from? But it's one of those things, I guess, it can happen. You sort of get to move one rung up socially from where you are in those things if you're lucky.
I did just have a thought, though, as to why maybe Yolson and Kraiklyn don't have a background. Is Horza has changed his whole body to be exactly like Kraiklyn. So if they were together, wouldn't she know? Although he does make a reference that his gonads stay the same.
Which I think that's more about your DNA and preserving that than it is about stopping people identifying your dick. But
I just thought it must be like a man thing, like, it's my dick, I'm going to keep it like it is.
I think it was more about preserving the...
actually, now that I say that, most dudes would probably add a couple of inches
or
something. Yeah.
In all directions.
Yeah, thinking, this is what they want. And it's like, no, that's not what we want.
Be like an elephant's trunk.
Just want you to use it properly.
And then, there's another sense of the scale of these things and also the physical properties of it. Feels like being on the surface of a planet inside an orbital. And they sort of covered that with the joke about, wouldn't it be weird being on a planet and having to deal with the curvature? And then it's like, well, on a megaship, it goes around the opposite directions from the spin, so you're lighter on it. Yes, and then we get the briefing, which becomes even more important because Lena Prober famously comes in late. After they've been told, hey, don't use anti-gravity.
Can I just say something quite funny? I think I mentioned this before, is that in the audiobook, the characters are given a lot of weird accents.
Yep.
Lenny Pobra is given a Southern hick US accent.
Well, when I want to indicate a stupid person, I will admit I have often pulled out a Southern drawl, which is grossly unfair to the many intelligent people of the South, particularly the ones who listen to this podcast.
Although, interestingly, Lamb is given an Australian accent. Which kind of, is a bit of a stereotype as well. Like, the kind of... He's a bit of a jock. Or, he's a rough and ready guy.
Yeah.
He's tough, but a bit dumb.
Yeah. And then there's just a little mention that as they're flying over the orbital, that the view was... of all the sights the galaxy held, which were the result of conscious effort, it was the one bested for what the culture would call Gorp value, only by a big ring or a sphere. So it's like, hey, this thing's huge. There's even bigger stuff out there. So they land on the megaship, and typical Kraiklyn, I think he's distracted by the fact he's actually here for the game of damage. And picking up the bow laser is...
So where was he going to play the damage, though?
The port on the orbital is where the players on the Eve of Destruction are going to play the damage game seconds before the culture blows it up.
But how do they get off?
They got there in spaceships.
Isn't that, a bit dumb?
Well, if you're an adrenaline junkie like that, you want to be, you can imagine they're scouting out stars that are about to go supernova or planets that are about to fall into suns. And then while people are running around screaming with their hair on fire,
they're just playing their game,
they're
and then
play
they're like,
their game. Yeah.
right. Okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, you get similar things to that in this world. So you get people who'd like to do it.
Yeah, no, I guess that makes sense. Well, it's not for me, but I get it.
So Kraiklyn's obviously distracted, and this is a bit of a real half-assed effort, even by his standards, in that he hasn't scouted out and hasn't even landed the shuttle up the bows where they think the lasers might be.
They have to walk 100 kilometres. It's
Is
ridiculous.
It 100 kilometres?
That's what they say.
Well, it's many kilometres.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100 kilometres you can't really walk in a day.
Yeah, I know this was... Oh, maybe it was 100 kilometres to the stern or the bow or whatever.
Yeah. Anyway, it's a long way. Look, distances are big. And, of course, Leonard Pobra, just having missed the part of the briefing where they said don't use anti-gravity because it won't work because there's no... it's not gravity.
And the ship's spinning, not... Isn't that what it was? Because the ship's spinning and so...
Because the orbital doesn't actually have gravity. It's just spinning everyone around, which throws them out, just like if you spun a bucket of water around. Okay. And literally Jang Drelly has this line, I guess kids these days just can't tell their gravity from their rotating frame of reference. Which is a very glib thing to say when someone's just fallen to their death because they didn't understand the environment they were in.
I mean, Horse is quite compassionate because he genuinely seems to feel bad that they forgot to tell him.
Even Kraiklyn seems pretty horrified by it.
Well, I think, but isn't Kraiklyn just more self-interested in that he's lost a crew member that makes, the missions harder? Yeah,
but there's a lot of italics in Kraiklyn's exclamation here. He jumped. How could he jump? I told you AG wouldn't work. I told you all.
But if he really cared, he would have made sure they were all there.
Yeah, or send everyone an email. We don't seem to have a lot of email except for the ship signals in this.
Yeah, true. I guess that's because it wasn't invented back then.
Well, yeah.
I mean, when Ian wrote the book.
Yes. There's an interesting little thing. Yeltsin keeps turning off her transmit button when she's swearing, and it sort of becomes code for Yeltsin is swearing when she turns off her transmit button. And, they sort of... And then they're on this huge deserted cruise ship, and there's lots of stuff where they're walking through swimming pools, walking by swimming pools.
Yeah, and really lushly furnished cabins and...
Yeah, or this line that the swirling mist lay in the bottom of such great bowls like a broth of dreams. I thought that was possibly a little overwrought. But, there it is. And it takes quite a few pages, and then they get to Lamb, who we've... Lamm, not lamb as in a baby sheep. He's certainly been played up as the hard man, and we didn't discuss it last chapter, but, it was there as Chekhov's gun. Apparently he's got a nuclear weapon in his suit that's rigged to go off if he dies. And I would not be happy being part of a combat team going into action with someone who's going to blow up if they die.
Seems a little reckless.
Yeah, he's not really thinking of anyone else after that event, is he? Yeah, and of course it goes off in this chapter.
Do you think he deliberately lets it off?
I think that's vague. I think he could have been like, screw you all, I'm going to trigger this thing. Or he could have just died in the cataclysm that was unfolding.
Yeah. So they've run into the ice and they're trying to escape him.
Yeah, which we'll get to. But there's this moment where Lamb's like, I'm going to cut that stupid little bastard's tongue out. That's Leonard Probert who's just died. That's what I'm going to do. A tattooed tongue should be worth something, shouldn't it?
I know. I was like, oh, they're going to get his body. That's nice. Oh, not quite so nice anymore.
Yeah, it's like, why bother getting his body? What are you going to do? Just release him into space like your last crew died?
Apparently they're just pilfering.
Oh, you know what they want? They want the weapon and the suit.
Yeah. And the tongue.
And all through this scene, I feel it's quite good, the foreboding about the clouds up ahead not being quite right.
Yeah, there's something about them that is... And Kraiklyn's like, nah, it's cool, guys.
Mm. And it turns out it's not cloud, it's a wall of ice, but all the while they're drifting closer and closer, which, considering the ship was abandoned because it had hit a mega iceberg, not scoping that out is entirely on brand for Kraiklyn's lack of intelligence gathering and being distracted by being there for the game. Yes, and then there's all the confusion about where are we, who's on the side bow, who's on the front bow, why haven't you got to the front of the ship yet? So comms and confusion and lack of navigation and lack of scouting and all the things we've come to associate with Kraiklyn's free company. And then the description of the megaship ploughing into the iceberg, that it was like the biggest wave in the universe, rendered in scrap metal, sculpted in grinding junk, and beyond it and about it, over and through, cascades of flashing, glittering ice and snow swept down in great slow veils from the cliff of frozen water behind. It certainly seems like a scene you wouldn't want to be in. The description of the glass keeping going frosted just as it's breaking, I really liked, because I've seen that, you see it in movies all the time these days, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what did you make of all this action, Sheridan?
Oh, it was very exciting. It was a big page-turner moment.
Mm-hmm. You ripped right through them?
Ripped right through them. Oh, 50 pages of them. These chapters are a little longer than I was led to believe when this podcast was proposed to me.
At least you're turning the pages.
I just love, actually, there's this really cool bit where Lamb is just really losing his shit because he's so pissed off at Kraiklyn. And he just says, "Kraiklyn, you stupid motherfucking son of a bitch's bastard." And I just thought that's just a great line.
Thank you for the language, Sheridan. Yeah. And then so Lamb...
They eventually have to turn his comms off because he's just calling Kraiklyn a bastard over and over.
Yeah, but so Mip takes off in the shuttle as the whole thing's falling apart, sees Hawser, manoeuvres the shuttle near him. Hawser just manages to hang on to the edge of the door.
He does a bit of a, like, Bruce Willis kind of...
Die hard, hang on by the fingernails. Yeah. And then the nuke goes off. And I thought... I quite liked the way that was all written, because you something's happened and you're not quite sure what, and then there's just little bits of evidence of what's going on, and it feels like you're in Hawser's head.
Yes, it does. Like, what's happening? Is he hurt? What is all this? What's this light? Something's gone off. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Am I hurt?
Yeah.
Is Mip hurt? We've just got to get away.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it sort of dawns that the nuke's gone off. Hawser's badly injured.
Although not that badly in the end. He said it cauterized him, so... Yeah,
but he's literally had a shot through his calf. And the fact that it's not bleeding out because it burned all the blood vessels is...
Be painful.
It's a big hole.
Yeah.
I don't think you'd be running around...
How does that heal?
With lots of scarring. But, I mean, he's a changer, so he can probably manipulate
true,
his thing. And Mip is basically dying, and... I thought it reminded me of when I've seen badly injured people, that Mip's just really just focused and tunnel visioned.
But isn't it? He's like, it was also, is that fog of war? That like that
fog of war and just shock.
Yeah,
which I think shock and fog of war are
clearly
related.
not thinking straight.
Yeah, no, he's just I want to get away. I want to get away. I want to get away. Part of his brain knows he's dying. Part of his brain is just like, if I just hunker down in these controls and keep getting away, that's all I can do. And as a description of someone in a great deal of pain and dying, it certainly it spoke to me in an authentic sort of way.
It gets pretty annoying though.
Mip does.
Yeah, well, I mean, he locks Hawser out of the cabin.
Yeah, well, he knows Hawser's going to try. Or the cockpit. Yeah.
But I mean, Hawser can't fly the ship.
Well, Hawser probably can.
Well, yeah.
Mip doesn't know that.
Yeah. And, I've got to give Hawser his credit. He should have really just... I reckon Hawser could take him.
Yeah, he probably would have crashed the shuttle, though.
Yeah.
So then, as you've said, they fly over the island, and there's sort of a description of things that Hawser's obviously not understanding what he's seeing either, like the people carrying what looked like a mountain, and then people on the island were shooting at them, and Mip decides it's too dangerous, but Hawser can see there's a shuttle on the beach, which he's thinking, that's a way out of here.
Well, and he knows the ship's going too slow, to get away from the...
Well, to get anywhere before because the size of this place, they can't fly anywhere before the culture blows the whole thing up. So I liked that. And then I suspect this is Hawser's luck coming out again, that just as they're flying over the island and starting to head away from it, the shuttle finally gave up the ghost after being shot up by Lamb and nuked by Lamb, and then, boom, falls into the ocean. So...
That's where we end.
Who's your MVP?
Oh, well, it's got to be... oh, God, I've forgotten his name. Lenny Popra.
For not paying attention to the safety briefing.
Yep.
Not being able to tell his gravity from his rotating frame of reference with fatal results. Who would have thought it would matter so much to be able to do that? Okay, cool. And do you have a favourite ship this chapter?
Well, it's got to be the I cannot say the name of the ship, the Megaship. And I listened to the audiobook, so I know how it's said. It's something about it. Medrica.
Yes. The eschatologist isn't getting any love?
Oh, because it's a ship, isn't it?
Mm.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. No, I'm going to leave that one probably to you.
All right, so the Megaship of Vavatch is your favourite, as the giant deserted cruise ship.
Or maybe it's the shuttle that's on the island.
Well, we don't really know much about that.
No, but it seems like a pretty good option at this point.
True. Okay, any thoughts, feelings, things you've learned?
Ooh, things I've learnt. So, I want to know why the Draazon guard of Shah's world is called Mr. Adequate.
Well, that's the sense of humour of the changes on the world.
Because...
They're basically saying he's a godlike being, but let's just call him Mr. Adequate.
So, the changes have a sense of humour.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or at least the ones who go and do nanny duty on Shah's world.
Yes, true.
Yeah.
So they're a bit resentful.
Maybe. I mean, Horza was sent there as a punishment, but other people chose to go there, mostly, I think, to get away from him.
Well, he was sent there as a punishment and to protect him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just an exile.
Yeah.
A low-level exile. Yeah. And what are your predictions, Sheridan? What do you think is going to happen next?
I think we're going to see a game of damage.
Okay. So, at some point.
I reckon, well, yeah, soon, I reckon.
Okay.
And I think some of the people are going to survive. I think Yolthan might survive.
If we're going to see a game of damage, surely that means Kraiklyn survived as well.
And I think Kraiklyn's going to survive.
Fair enough. Okay. Well, thanks, everyone. We really appreciate you listening along with us, and we will be back next week with, what's the next chapter called, Sharon?
Ooh, I think it's called The Eaters.
The Eaters. Now, I've had people who are listening to the podcast get in touch wanting to know what I think about The Eaters. And I've been like, we haven't got to that chapter yet, folks. But
I must say, when I saw the name of the next chapter, I was like, wow, some full-on stuff is going down on this island.
All right, and on that note, we're going to let you go, folks. Thanks very much. And we will be back in the next episode, The Eaters. Now, this is the first time a chapter has been not a place.
Oh, no, well, Megaship.
Megaship's a place.
Well, not really, because they're...
Well, and Clear Air Turbulence is a ship as well. So
no, but Megaship is not an actual
specific
thing. That's like saying the planes are a place.
I still think it's a shift to describing people as a chapter heading versus
True.
Somewhere you might sit. Anyway, we will see.